Alright, so today we're going to be talking about how we know our magic works. So let's get into that. So there's a wonderful question that you get when you start getting into occult stuff and you get into occult magic and esotericism, and that is, this stuff is really cool looking, but how does it work? Like, does it work even? I mean, the answer to that is yes, it does work, but how do we know? And that's where UPG comes in. UPG stands for unverified or unverifiable personal gnosis. Unverified personal gnosis is information that you get from spirits and things that apply maybe to you, but maybe not to other people, right? So, an example of UPG would be if a spirit tells you, hey, you're really good at making money in this particular way. And you haven't done it. That's unverified. Now you go and try it. And you're successful. You're wildly successful even. You make tens of thousands of dollars overnight, basically. Well, then that becomes verified. And verified personal gnosis is more real than unverified. The hierarchy of gnosis goes, it is unverified / unverifiable gnosis at the bottom. Then you have shared personal gnosis, which is gnosis that is shared with other people. And then you have verified personal gnosis. And gnosis is information that you get, in this case, gnosis standing for information that you get from spirits, basically. This is not to be confused with the version of gnosis listed in the Hermeticum, which is knowledge that cannot be transmitted through verbal communication. That is a different kind of gnosis. That is talking about gnosis that is like a type of information. This is talking about like personal experiences. Moving on. UPG is very important. Don't discount UPG. Usually if you doubt UPG, the best thing you should do is you should go divine it. You should go divine UPG to make sure you're not bullshitting yourself. I've known a lot of people who do this, and usually that's the best. That being said, the best thing you can do is make sure that you're getting it from a semi-reliable source. Which is why in the Michael Evocation Guide I put up on Patreon this month, or last month if you're watching this when it goes live on YouTube, link in the description, I mentioned that you should be giving verifiable tests. Verifiable tests are tests that you can go out after you're done with your evocation operation and Google. These are very easy to look up tests, and they're very easy to verify on your part. This is to make sure that you can get a very solid grasp of what you're doing, and making sure that you're actually having weird results. Because, you know, if you go through and you have a spirit and you can't verify that you're actually talking to a spirit, you might just be talking to yourself, and that's kind of a problem, because if you're trying to get defense and you're trying, like in the Michael operation, if you're trying to conjure up Michael for defense and you go ahead and then you're like, oh yeah, I ended up talking to myself for 20 minutes, that's a problem. That's a big fucking problem. Not good. So we need to figure out a way to get around that and make sure that doesn't happen. Hence why we do verifiable tests. Now, I've been talking a lot about spirits in this video. However, there's another type of magic. There's two types of magic that you need to worry about the manifesting. And that is thaumaturgy. I've been talking a lot about theurgy, which is working with spirits primarily, usually for divine and self-improvement aims. But what about thaumaturgy? What about manifesting things into reality? And the answer to that question is you will know. You will know when it manifests. Usually, unless you cast for something very subtle. If you cast to get offered a new job, you will, and it works, you will know because you got offered a new job. Or alternatively, it was very subtly offered to you. It was offered to you in a way of, yeah, can you apply to this position? We made a position and we are looking for somebody like you to fill it. That's a very subtle job offer. Another way of looking at it is, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, Love Spell thing is up on the Patreon. Love Spell manifestation is an absolute fucking bitch and a half. Because I know some people who they cast love spells and then they have no fucking idea that the love spell manifested because they had no idea that the person was into them. Or they did know, and for some reason, like, they didn't put energy into the spell, and then they decided, oh yeah, I guess this person doesn't like me. And it's like, she was giving you the fuck me eyes the entire time, my dude. What are you talking about? Like, that kind of thing can happen with love magic, and that is the best example. But it happens when magic manifests very subtly. Now, if you go ahead and you put a lot of energy, and this is why you should be putting a lot of energy into spells, this is the real reason, because if you put a lot of energy into spells, they will usually manifest in more explosive and dynamic ways. If you cast spells that, you do magic that can only manifest in, like, very subtle ways, and you don't put a lot of energy into it, and then it manifests very subtly, that's its own thing. I mean, I've had so many spells that I was like, wow, this is a weird one, and then it manifests, and I'm just like, wow, okay, so that's weird. And then I look back on my notes, because I'm going to be doing a video on magical notebooks at some point. I look back on my notes, and then I find, oh yeah, I cast for that weird occurrence to happen. And then I don't follow up on it, and then I think about following up on it like months or weeks later, and then it's too late. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So you need to make sure that you're putting effort into your magic, because if you're not putting effort into your magic will not put effort into manifesting. And if it's not putting effort into manifesting, it's a real bitch to figure out to have. It kind of turns into a magical Where's Waldo situation, where it's like, it's starting to manifest, but you don't really know how it's manifesting, and you don't really know, like, where it's manifesting, and you don't really know, like, what's going on with it as a whole. And that, in and of itself, is something that you should be paying attention to, because if you're not paying attention to it, you're gonna miss your magic. Now, how do we know if our magic blanked? This is important, because what I mean by magical blanks is you cast a spell, you put a lot of energy into the spell, but for some reason it didn't work. Okay. Commonly, I find this happens with spells that you can't get out of your head, primarily. Primarily, it's you can't get them out of your head. 2, it's you didn't put a lot of energy into it. 3, you did it on the wrong date, wrong time, wrong entities, wrong energy, wrong everything, which can happen. I know I've had that happen a couple times. Or, and this is my personal favorite, you decided to do something so stupid that it manifested near instantly and you missed it. In which case, congratulations, you played yourself. But for the other versions, let's go over each of the other ones. Not putting enough energy into a spell. This I find happens when you use oversized candles. I find that this happens mostly when you use oversized candles because they kind of need a ritual in and of themselves to charge the candle before you do anything. Like, you basically need to do a full-blown magical ritual to consecrate your overblown candles. Which is a problem in and of itself for obvious reasons. Then you have the wrong time, wrong entity, wrong energy, wrong everything situation. Now this can happen if you are, let's say you're trying to do a spell involving a fire elemental, but you use the symbols and the invocations of water instead, and you invoke water instead, and you try to do it that way. Well, it might work, but it'll work in a backfiery way. Now, this isn't so much as of a blank as it is a misfire. This will give you what you want usually, but it'll give it to you in a much stranger way, I find. Alternatively, if you're doing a spell that requires a very specific astrological position and the planets aren't in that astrological position, then congratulations, your spell isn't going to work as well. It might still work, but we want it to work 100%, not 50%, which is a problem. And wrong entity. Some entities just don't fucking like you. Some entities won't fucking like you. That's not your fault, that's just the way things go. I'm usually a very likable person, but some spirits just don't like me, and vice versa. Right? Some spirits love me and love working with me, and I'm kind of worried about working with them because I like working with them a little bit too much. This is one of those problems, where if you're working with an entity that doesn't like you, and you ask them for something, if you haven't, bound them into service or something, if you haven't pressed them into service, you might be evoking a spirit, and the spirit might just tell you in no uncertain terms to fuck off. That can happen. And that would cause your magic to blank. Or if it does blank, if it doesn't blank, it's basically the spirit saying, here you go, never call me again. That can be how that works. So yeah, recap. Unverified personal gnosis is not a problem, but you should be trying to verify it if you're trying to get a solid grasp. Eventually, you should be at a point in your practice where you don't need to verify every little detail, but you want to verify at least one part of it so you know that you're getting it from a semi-reliable source. 2. Shared personal gnosis is usually when you're going to go ask a friend to divine something for you because you think you're going fucking crazy. 3. Verified personal gnosis is when you have verified the gnosis that you have been given from a spirit. These apply to manifestation as well, as unverified is you're pretty sure that it's going to manifest, shared is that other people saw it manifest, and verified is that it manifested. They don't really apply to the manifestation versions. The way you test if a thaumaturgical or a manifestation act has actually manifested is it's either manifested, manifesting, or blanked. That's kind of how it works. Alright? And there's a little bit of a spin on each of those. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. And have a good rest of your day. Take it easy.